Good morning. I'm Howard Redwood. I work on the help desk. I'm also head of road safety for the DIA. I've been in the industry now nearly 20 years doing driver training for cars, but I came out of the transport industry and the emergency services prior to that, and did 15-year stint working in both at the same time. So I'm rather rounded on my experience with the LGV sector, with cars and also with motorbikes, as I also did motorbike training as well. So I've got a fair broad information. So far questions me about risk. I will answer what I can in the time we've got. Those that don't get answered, we should be able to capture the questions you put into the portal, into the question portal. So I'll repeat again, please put your questions in the portal, in the question portal, not in the chats, because the chat scrolls too quickly and we miss them. So yes, use your chats to give information to each other if you wish to, but please put your questions in the questions portal, okay? And then Tom can look at those. He can interject in what I'm saying if it's pertinent to what I'm saying at the time, and we'll also have a bit of time for questions at the end anyway, and I'll answer as many as I can. We'll capture the rest of them and try and get those answers out to you, either through the update so everyone gets the answer, or through Carly's webinar, okay? And if I can leave it like that, that will sort of make it quite rounded for us to start, okay? So I'm going to move on now. So we've got the risk assessment webinar today. It's assessing and managing the risk for on-road driver training, and this is really for post-lockdown, but people who are doing motorcycles and doing the key workers and also the LGV, if anyone's involved with LGV, there is something in here for all of you that's pertinent to everybody. So we've made this quite a rounded webinar. The aims we've got here is to, first of all, establish what we mean by risk. A lot of people get put off by risk assessments and think it's too bureaucratic and they don't really know how to put one together. Well, you don't have to know how to put one together. All you've got to do is be able to think about it. Okay, it really is a lot of common sense. So why do we need risk assessment frameworks? We'll go through this as well. How to conduct an effective risk assessment. Most of it, believe it or not, is in your head. What the key risks are of training, both on-road and in the classroom. Key risk management approaches and specific risks we've got for training in the COVID context, post-lockdown, because COVID's not going to go away. Just because we get a green flag to say we can start training, we really have got a new norm to work in, which I'll talk about a little bit in a minute. We've also put together a post-lockdown risk assessment framework for you, which we made available to you really quite soon. We have put together for the membership only. This is going to be membership because we've given a lot of free stuff out, and I mean a lot of free stuff, and a lot of man hours given to people who are not members because we felt we owed it to the industry to help everybody be kept abreast of the financial arrangements the government were putting out, and thought it wasn't fair to let people sink because, you know, a lot of us know colleagues who probably aren't members of the DIA, but you wouldn't want them to lose their business. So we've done a lot for people who are non-members, but we've got to start reining back in again now and looking after our membership who pay their money for information to come from us. So the lockdown toolkit, the returning to work toolkit that we've put together is a big package of information, including webinars and seminars, and information that will be available to members only in the academy. And it will be a password to get in, so it will be for members only. That will be available, we're hoping, within possibly next week. We are working really hard at it to get it out. And it really is quite comprehensive. Talking about the COVID-19 lockdown, etc., we have already done webinars on the deep clean of vehicles. We did one last Friday week, which was a returning to work webinar, which included a lot of personal protective equipment information on what is available. Carly actually demonstrated some of it as well. That webinar is free to anybody to watch at the DIA Academy, which is DIA Academy www.competencies.co.uk/webinars. You can go in there. There's a whole number of webinars now, and anybody who hasn't seen any, I would urge you to make the time to look at them. There's a lot there of information that you will need to help you get back to work when we start properly. And those who are doing key working as well, how to get into the voluntary key worker register, which protects you in some respects, because the police still have powers to stop and question, and they still have powers to fine if they think you shouldn't be on the road doing training. So your key workers need to have their identity with them, and if you're on the register, you need to have that identification of your vehicle in your vehicle at the same time as well. So being on the register, you have that identification, which the police will realise is bona fide training, and they tend to leave you alone. All of the police forces are aware of the register. They've all been made aware now by the police chiefs, what they call Police Chiefs Council. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So let's find out what risk is, and it is very simply an event or situation that interferes with a safe outcome, and that event can be transmitted physically, mentally, or environmentally. Now, I'm not talking about the big environment of the rivers and the trees and everything else. I'm talking about environmentally. It's an effect that can it can hit us very close to us in our immediate environment or outside of our vehicle. So it can consist of one of those three or a combination of those three. So if I just move on, and I can give you some examples. But let's talk about why we have to have risk assessment frameworks. It all goes back to the 1974 Health and Safety at Work Act. And believe it or not, although you guys, most of you are self-employed, one or two of you may be limited companies who are employees of your own company. Irrespective of whether you are private limited or not, because your car has reasonable access for the public, you have to have a health and safety policy. Now, everyone's scurrying now, oh, I'm scared of doing that. It's if there is more than 5 people in your establishment, it has to be written down and be available for inspection. If there's less than 5 people in your establishment, then it has to exist, but doesn't have to be written down. Now, this is quite pertinent to driver trainees who have franchisees. So if you have yourself and you have 4 cars on the road, you have to have this policy, especially if you've also got someone in your office working. That puts 6 of you in your business. So you have to have this policy, because although your franchisees are all self-employed, you act as an agent or a contractor for those people. And these regulations still come under that situation as well. So you do have to have this policy existing as to how you will mitigate the risk of things taking place in your business. This forms part of it. We also come under the Management of Health and Safety Regulations 1999, which means that the risk assessments must be carried out and reviewed on a regular basis. How regular depends on you, but really more often than once a year. Should be at least twice a year in my book. I do a lot of, I'm not IOSH or NEBOSH qualified, I'm working towards it, but in my view, they should be a minimum, depending on the risk, of 6 months. That should be the absolute minimum they should be. And the more risk there is in the system, the more often they should be done. But this includes on-road and classroom training. They are environments that need to be protected, and the risks have to be assessed. So that's the situation we're in. This is why a framework has to exist. The law says it does. Okay, so let's just work out now how these frameworks work. So first of all, we need to know, what is risk assessment? What is a risk assessment? In its simplest form, a risk assessment is looking at a proposed action you would like to take, and then see how the environment you're in affects it and what affects the environment. And you can work out how safe the outcome is going to be. Now, there's many ways this is described, but without being bureaucratic, that is the simplest way of explaining it to you. So you have a proposed action. The action is carrying out an operation in order to achieve a task. That's what we do, and we train people to drive. So we know how to do that. We know that some of the tasks we give our students, for instance, the holistic task of emerging from junctions, there are many subtasks in there, like being able to judge when to pull up towards a give way line, being able to look right and left, being able to do slow to flow if we can, knowing about open and closed junctions. There's all these subtasks that make up the bigger task. Okay, so the whole operation, so you need to be able to carry out the whole operation to achieve a task. So that's your action, and your environment is your immediate vicinity. So if you're training in the car, that'll be in your vehicle, but also the influences that take place outside the vehicle, which affects its control and affects the input that you put into controlling, or your student puts into controlling the vehicle. So holistically, the environment is your surrounding. It's like a safety bubble around you. How is that bubble going to get burst? That's what you're looking at, okay? So the environment can be inside or outside of the vehicle. So let's do an example. You're driving your own vehicle. You're driving down a dual carriageway, okay? So your proposed action is to drive between the roundabout behind you and the roundabout in front of you, okay, which is at the other end of your dual carriageway. So that's your proposed action. Your environment is the road and the other people who are driving along that dual carriageway on your carriageway at the same time. There may be some things to take into consideration, like T-junctions on the left-hand side of you, which don't have acceleration lanes, which may have people waiting to come out. So you are driving from between two roundabouts on the road, and you're watching for space, you're doing your judgment, etc. Now, if we change that environment to now have your carriageway, your dual carriageway, being affected by heavy smoke drifting across it, your proposed action is still to drive down the dual carriageway, but your risk assessment now is, how is the smoke going to affect you and everybody else in the environment? The environment has now been contaminated by the smoke. You can't see so well. So what do? Slow down and possibly put on lights so you can be seen from the people who are in front of you, can see you in their mirrors, and the people behind you can see you going through the smoke and may be able to keep their depth of field of vision. So your outcome is still safe, but because the smoke, the safety margin has been reduced. So that's what we mean by the risk assessment. It's your action. How's the action affected by the environment? Can you still get a safe outcome? So that's what we're looking at with a risk assessment. So the influences are what really affect the safety aspects, okay? So we have to now be able to put together a system of how we can mark what the safety is and the level of risk or danger is. The most common one, the most simple one, is the traffic lights. Basically, that's what it is. But in our industry, the most common influences is adverse weather. Adverse weather. Most people will say, "Oh, that's bad weather. That's rain, etc." May not be. It could be very hot sunshine. How's your environment going to be affected by hot sunshine? Well, we went through earlier on and said that our proposed actions and environment, the environment can be affected physically, we can be affected mentally and environmentally. Where with very hot weather, we can be browbeaten by the hot weather, which can make us tired. So mentally, we're affected. Physically, or environmentally rather, the road could actually melt. So we've got this situation with adverse weather where all three of those things could affect our situation and can reduce and can increase the risk of us driving on that road. Stress and anxiety. This can come from two sides. It can be either you stressed and full of anxiety through things that have happened through the lockdown, money worries, it could be deaths in the family, etc. Your students could be in the same situation when you meet them. We'll talk about that in a second, but when you actually make contact with them, they may be stressed by things they've had. And I'm going to talk about things that have been reported in the media, and I don't really want to sound that I'm trying to put a dull beat on this, but there has been a lot of violence in the households that's been reported, which the students have probably seen or could have even been involved with. There have been deaths in families through the COVID virus, and stress and anxiety where these people have not been allowed or not been able to have been laid to rest in a normal way due to the restrictions on funerals, etc. So the grieving process is still very raw with them. Their competence, or your competence as well, with your CPD, etc. The people coming back with you, we've now got to understand we've got a new road system now. The behaviour on the roads, we're going to see in a minute, is being changed quite drastically through the lockdown. And I've got evidence of a slide in a minute, which I'll show you. Hazardous substances, you're now going to start coming into contact quite copiously with substances your body doesn't normally come into contact with. They may be cleaning substances, which will be used between drivers, which is the hand sanitizing lotions that you would use, antibacterial, antiviral, also the wipes. In order to reduce the risk there, you might want to put gloves on because of the ingestion that can get into your body through the skin. It hasn't got to be, you haven't got ingesting through your nose or your mouth. It can be ingested through the pores of the skin. So you do need to make sure you wear gloves with some of the stuff when you're handling it. Contagious contact hasn't got to be physical contact. It can be airborne, which we're talking about the COVID-19, and the I call it musketeer. I can't pronounce that word. The one at the bottom, which is where we generally have to sit down a lot, which gives us spinal problems, etc. But now with all the bending, stretching and stooping of keeping the vehicle clean, so often between drives and the deep clean you've got to do, which is in the webinar we did 2 weeks ago, the deep clean you need to do, ideally you need to do weekly in order to keep your starting blocks on the sanitation of your vehicle. That's going to need a lot of bending, stretching and etc. So the musculoskeletal, is that it? That's the one, I think. That can start rearing its ugly head with people who've got back problems and problems, physiological problems with body disorders, etc. So this is all quite common to us. We sit down a lot in that car, and some of us are not very fit. So we have got these are common influences that affect our environment in our industry. So there's influences we have to watch for that can change the level of risk to us in different ways. I do really physically, mentally, and environmentally. Now, I'm going to just go off the track a tiny bit here and bring you back in. So I'm going to talk about competencies, because that was one of the bullet points in the previous slide there. That third one down is competence. We're talking about our competence. Sorry, I've got one missing. Let's try that. There we go. We're talking about our competence of being able to deliver the competencies that are required for the standards check. And this whole seminar really is about that, managing the risk of the environment that the examiner has to see when you do your standards check, that you've got to get more than 8 points in order to be successful at one level or the other on your standards check. So we're looking at when a student comes to you, they may not know anything at all, completely green. They've seen someone drive a vehicle before, but they really are getting in a fluster as to, it's all a big task overload for them. We've all seen them, we've all had them. And that's known as the unconscious incompetent stage. That is my little favorite saying. They don't know what they don't know. So they come in completely green, and they really are leaning very heavily on you to give them information. And it's at these starts that coaching, you have to have a mixture of coaching and instruction sometimes, because you can ask questions, but if they haven't got the information, you've got to tell them. And we try to avoid telling them and try to make it work out for themselves as best we can with client-centered learning and coaching. But this unconscious incompetent stage is where they lean on you the most. And when they start getting some competence, they've done their lessons in controls, and they start to do their moving off and stopping, they then start to move on to the conscious incompetence, where they understand there's a lot they don't know. So between those two competencies of unconscious and conscious, you've gone from they don't know what they don't know until they realize they didn't know it. And that's when they realize they've got a learning task to climb over, and you help them do that. It's made as easy as possible for them by your competencies on how you manage that and how you can put information across to them and help them to work things out for themselves and help them to compare other situations into a similar problem they're now taking part in. So this is what the examiner is looking for, and looking to see what strategies you're using and how much of the standards you are using in order to get the information to come across. So the conscious incompetence is where they understand what they don't know. They're starting to realize there's a lot they don't know, and they start taking on information, and their dexterity starts to get a little bit better. They understand when you say bring the clutch up gently, they understand what gently is, and they understand about the pressure, whatever unit you give them of pressure of gas. I usually use pound coins and say, I want you to press the gas pedal just the thickness of a pound coin. So give me a pound of gas or give me 2 pounds of gas. And they tend to be able to do that. And they start to understand that the output of the vehicle, the response from the vehicle is really quite whatever they put in. It's going to be comparable to whatever they put in. So the response is whatever they put in. Once they start getting dexterous, they move into a conscious competence where they start to have a little more skill of controlling that vehicle. And in this control, they start to get a little bit of judgment. They start understanding their positioning, and things start rolling along quite nicely. They haven't got there yet. They don't know everything. There's still going to be a little bit of input from you. You might still have to pull up on the side of the road and discuss certain things they've got wrong and put their mind back to things that have been discussed and other subtasks they've done in other competencies elsewhere earlier in their training. And eventually they come to the unconscious competence where they really do pick up their dexterity is good, their coordination is good, and they're really now starting to get to test readiness. And that's where you want them to get to with a firm foundation. So we have to make sure that we put them through a decent syllabus of training to get them where they are. Now, all of these different parts of this competence, the unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence segments of their development are all different risk categories to you. So as you are doing the training, you have to keep ascertaining what risk is that person at to you in that vehicle. And this is why you discuss what responsibilities they are going to take at the beginning of every session when you get them in the vehicle. So you tell them what you're going to take control of, and you try and give them a bit more responsibility every time you see them. And this is where the examiners are looking for in the standards, that you have actually assessed the competence and you're not going to put them into environments they're not ready for, because you've then got the problem with the risk management in your whole scheme of your standards check. And if the examiner sees that in your standards check, then they're going to assume that that is what happens all the time in your lessons, because that's the snapshot that you've given them. So your training cannot be when you go and do your standards check, cannot be play acting. You've got to really go to your standards check in a unconscious, competent state yourself with your training, and be literally at peace with your training. And that reduces the most risk for the environment that you are in. Now, I've taken you a bit off piece there a little bit to do that, because I'm going to bring you back in now to see this. So we're just going to recap, looking at the risk in its simplest form. A proposed action versus the environmental effect produces your outcome. The outcome you get is going to be marked by the traffic light scheme: red, amber, or green. Red being serious, amber being intermediate risk, and green being a low risk. Okay, all right. So let's move on now to this next one here. So let's take a risk factor now using this traffic light system. I haven't put lights on as such, but I've done it with colors. So you've got someone who's in the unconscious incompetent state. Are you going to put them on a dual carriageway? Now, believe it or not, when I was living around the Gatwick area, I went to the test centre and I was talking to one of the ADIs there, and that's exactly what he did with his students. When he got them in the car, he lived close to a dual carriageway, and he said, I will control the brake and the clutch. You just drive on a straight line, because if you can realise you can drive on a straight line, you can drive anywhere. And I cringed when I heard that. This is when I was about only 2 years into driving instruction. I reported him to the DIA, rightly or wrongly. But there was a guy working at the DIA who was head of road safety. It's called Peter Lorb, and this guy was old school. And he phoned the guy up and had a chat with him and said, look, you really, really can't do that sort of thing. You've got to start bringing these people through gently and build up their skills and their dexterity, etc. You can't just go on the dual carriageway because it's a straight road. That guy came back to me 4 months later and said, called me a few names and said, what the hell did you do that for? And I said, oh, you got the phone call from Peter Lorb then? He goes, yes, I did. I said, how long were you on the phone for? He said, 3 hours. So you got a right going over with Peter Lorb. But he said to me at the end of it, he said, I've got to be honest. He said, I learned more in that 3-hour phone call than I ever learned being trained to be a driving instructor. So Peter Lorb was a very, very knowledgeable guy. He's not, I think he's retired now. I don't think he's doing any more training at the moment, but a very, very knowledgeable guy. You're not going to get many people more knowledgeable than him of road safety. And so when you're going to do when you've got your unconscious incompetent students, you're doing a risk assessment of where you're going to take them to do your controls lesson with them. And, you might be quite close, you might have to drive them somewhere else. But even when they're doing the controls lesson, you've got to make sure the environment is safe for them to do it in that location and people aren't reversing around all the place and everything else. So someone in an unconscious incompetent state on a dual carriageway would be a danger, a real danger. But there's still quite a danger doing moving and stopping because their skills and dexterity and their judgments aren't good. So even at that early stage, you might still have to have quite a heavy risk weighting here on moving and stopping. But in unconscious incompetence, they might be a medium risk at controls, at controlling the vehicle. Okay, so it's going to be different levels of risk for different aspects and subtasks of the training. Conscious incompetence, you put somebody in that situation on dual carriageway, yeah, they still haven't got the judgment, they still haven't got the dexterity, so they're going to be a high risk. But moving and stopping, well, they've got a little bit of knowledge now and a bit more dexterity and judgment, so they're probably going to be sort of like more like a medium risk, so you're able to give them a little bit more responsibility, sit back just a tiny bit, but keeping an eye and monitoring what they're doing. And on the controls would be the same because the dexterity is still not quite there. They're still a bit rough with the clutch, probably a little bit sharp on the brakes still not judging up, putting up short of giveaway lines or putting up short of the curb and still a bit wide from it, etc. The conscious competence, where they really are starting to get the hang of things and wanting to learn more and getting a bit hungry for learning, you put them on a dual carriageway at this point, right, okay, well, they'll probably cope with a lot of guidance from you, but there'll be a medium risk to you in this situation. But moving off and stopping now, they should have the dexterity. They've done it so often that they've mastered or very nearly mastered those tasks, and therefore they become low risks in those areas. And then the unconscious competence should be, well, they should be in a very low risk to be test ready. And if they are not in the low risk at test ready, they're not ready to go to test. Now, you also have to make personal risk assessments here as well. Because with this COVID situation we've got, which is not going to go away, we have to now look as part of the environment as who are we going to affect if we leave the door? Have we got people behind us in our own homes who we are shielding or are extremely vulnerable, or are people that are likely to get unwell? That's the two different categories that have now been put on the medical shield, as it were, that they've gone from people of high risk, they've now segregated that, they split that now to extremely vulnerable and people who are most unlikely to get unwell. So extremely vulnerable are people who've got severe breathing difficulties and some very serious situations going on, cerebral palsy, all this sort of thing. The people who are likely to get unwell are the ones that are at risk, who are age grouped, who are actually quite well, but are likely to get unwell, have got a good risk of getting unwell, and also the people who have got diabetes and have had heart operations and on certain medication. They are the two categories that are there. So if you've got anybody in your household, that puts you in a bit of a quandary, because you've seriously got to look at the person who you're going to be training and see what they bring to the table. Are they going to be of a medical situation themselves that could put risk into your household? And this is where your risk assessment frameworks are now coming from. This is the way we're thinking now in this new norm that we've got to deal with. Whereas before it didn't matter too much, you had a cough and a cold, okay, you go and take some vitamins and you would fight it all off. Things are a bit more serious now. This is not going to go away very soon. There is not really much sign of a vaccine. There's tests going ahead, but by the time they get it all distributed around the world for everyone to have it and to stop it spreading or spiking, we're still a long way off. So we have to protect ourselves, and we have to stop, and we have to think. And that's what this risk assessment is stopping and thinking what can affect our environment and burst the bubble. So this is where we're coming from now. So I'm going to move on and look back again at the situation of making sure we reduce our risks straight away. So on-road risks, our vehicle status, is it ready to be used? Okay, have you got the insurance sorted out? Is it roadworthy? Is it MOT'd, etc.? Because there has been a window on the MOT for an MOT holiday. That is still in existence at the moment. But with it being a car for business and it is business insured, although you have got that window, professionally, you'd be expected to get the vehicle MOT'd as soon as possible if you're in that situation where it's expired and you're in the window. When you find an MOT station that is open, get the vehicle MOT'd as soon as you can. The business insurance will have a little bit of a mitigation to say, okay, you're in the MOT window. Really, the vehicle shouldn't be on the road because it's not, you're going really on a bit of a wing and a prayer really here. If it went to court, if you had an opportunity to MOT that vehicle because an MOT station near you was open and you're in that window of the MOT holiday, you should really cut that holiday short and get that vehicle MOT because you're on a business insurance. Okay, that's how a court would have said to you under risk mitigation. Okay, is the vehicle reliable? It's been idle for some time. Is it going to start? Now, sanitation, ideally, there's two things to consider here. I've only got one bullet point there. I should have two. Sanitation really is cleaning the vehicle down between drivers. That is when you have cleaned the vehicle down before you get to your students, after having the last student. So you have lost the last student, they've gone, they finished their lesson. You clean the vehicle down after them because you've got to drive it. Then you drive to your next student. You then clean the vehicle down again because you're again a change of driver. So your student can get in behind the vehicle. If you do demonstration drives, you'd be expected to clean the vehicle down or clean the area of the driver's seat down again because again, it's a change of driver. So every time that driver changes, the steering wheel on all contact points and everywhere should be cleaned down with the sanitary wipes, etc. But there's another clean that needs to be done now as well, ideally, which is the advice brought out by the government on the cleaning of non-health environments. So what do you call it? I can't remember what it's called now, but it's the one that came out the week before last. And it's doesn't actually spill out about how to clean a car, but we've pulled the bits and pieces out of it and put it in last week's or the webinar on the PPE stuff. We've put it in there in great detail, and it's basically a deep clean. It's using bleach-free disinfectant diluted on whatever it says on the bottle, which is at least 1 to 10 or 1 to 20, and wiping things down with just a slightly damp cloth with that impregnated into the cloth, and wiping down dry afterwards, wearing aprons and gloves, etc. Not necessarily disposable aprons where you can put an apron on, but it also recommends in that guidance that any clothing you wear for the deep clean, you then take off and put in the wash machine on as warm wash as you reasonably can. Now, what you're doing with the deep clean, which you should be doing before you start your first lot of training, before you see your first client, is do the deep clean no more than 72 hours before you see that first client. And that's because the effect of the sanitation will still be good, but it gives you a starting block, which your sanitation between drivers will try and keep up. Yes, it will wane, and that is why the guidance says that the deep clean should really be done weekly. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit more about that in another slide later on. Okay, so I'm going to move on now. Tom, have we got any questions that are pertinent at the moment?
Hi, Howard. There are a few questions. There are quite a few on PPE that I can see that are coming up. Obviously, would advise having a look at the PPE webinar that we did, which in more detail, which was a couple of weeks ago. That's on the Academy. There are a few questions that people are asking that are quite similar about the key worker register being extended. Because obviously it finishes at the end of June.
It's been extended to the end of August.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And then at the start, you also mentioned about changing tests. A few people just asking how they would do that if they needed to change a test.
Well, I'll answer that question now, because we have information from the registrar that I'm not certain if it has started today or whether it starts on Monday, but a limited number of DVSA staff, because of the distance regulations, are going back into the office to start the process of being able to do the admin. I believe in all departments, so I mean, ABI badges will start to be picked out. The ones that have that are expiring or expired have been applied for. Driving licenses that need their photo cards changed, all that sort of stuff. That's all going to start working. I think it starts from Monday. I'm not sure. It might start today, but the cogs are slowly starting to turn at DVSA. So there will be people on site. Either online will open up or the phones will open up again where these tests can be changed. But I'd urge you, for people who've got tests that are booked for the end of June, hold fire at the moment, because we've contacted the Minister for Roads, and we are awaiting a response to get some more clarity and better contact through the DVSA. We've complained like mad about it. We really have. Carly's really gone to town with it. So we are now waiting for the Baroness to respond with what they're going to do to try and give us for want of a better word, a roadmap of how things should proceed. Okay, it might still get postponed again, but if we've got a roadmap that gives us notice of when things are going to kick off, and we can get permission to start going back on the road properly without this grey area, then we can start doing the training to the people who need to be ready for those first tests without cramming it. It's no point cramming it, because it's a very, very unfair disadvantage on those people. So, and we really have highlighted that as well. So don't go postponing the test sort of 24th, 25th, 26th of June just yet. Just wait another week or so, and then get your students to think about postponing if we haven't given you any updated information. I'll leave that there, because we must push on, because already it's 20 to 12, and I appreciate that some of these webinars have gone well over time on the last 2 or 3, and it's people have had to stop early. So who cleans this vehicle? I'm talking about the deep clean here as well. Actually, I've missed a slide off, to be honest. So I'm talking about the deep clean here. It's not wise for you to go to a valeting company to get your deep clean done, because you've got 4 or 5 people from varying households who are going to be crawling all over that car, and you've got no idea what the situation is with the, you have to excuse the phone going off in the background, I won't answer it, but you have to appreciate that they come from varying backgrounds, and as they come from varying backgrounds, you've got no idea who they've contacted with, etc., and all of that can contaminate your learning environment, which is your car, which in turn you can take that back into your household, and you could then, obviously, if you are shielding people, can cause a problem there as well. So you need to be doing this clean yourself. Okay. I hope you can hear me over the phone. Let it ring. Okay, so we are now going to move on into the procurement of what you have to have. So again, your risk assessment needs a kit, ideally, for you to make sure that you have everything you need to be able to keep your vehicle clean, and also consider whether the student that you're training has to, are going to supply their own stuff or not. Okay, so you're really got to start thinking about what your little toolkit's going to need for you to carry in the vehicle. So your cleaning equipment, you need to clean the vehicle, and also the all of the wipes and detergent, even to clean your clothes afterwards as well. You don't want to be wearing clothes for a great deal of time. Change them daily in order to keep the ensure that you keep yourself and the environment sanitized as much as possible, in terms of you've started the starting blocks with your deep clean, and you want to try and keep that deep clean going as long as you can. So I know people who wear the branded clothing for their own companies. It's quite common for people to wear that as much as they can in order to advertise themselves, but you've really got to guard against doing that and putting it in the wash as often as it needs to, and wash it as high as the clothes will allow, in order to keep everything sanitized as possible. I believe that a 40 wash or above, I think, kills the coronavirus. I think it's 37 degrees it needs. So it's a situation where you just have to get this kit together for you to you're going to have to get the kit together for you to have all the time, so you're prepared with these antibacterial virus gels, etc. It's going to take a little time to get together, and again, in the webinar that we did 2 weeks ago, all this information of what to get, and also I think in some instances where you can get it from, is in there. I know remember rightly, one of the places for gloves was a company called Just Gloves, and they do the gloves. They do latex, but they also do the other gloves that can be worn for people who have latex. What do you call it? What's the word? Allergies. Have latex allergies, and they have other stuff there as well. That's one of the companies I know that we had a lot of the AGIs that said they've been in touch with and had got stuff from. But there's also other organisations. Amazon has some companies that do equivalent of cycling masks, because we've been told to leave all the medical masks alone. But there's an organisation called DIYII, DIY, are on Amazon, do a pack of 6 masks at £7.57. So it's getting this stuff together, but you need to organise with your clients when you do your initial phone call with them, that who's going to supply the PPE, where they are, whether you are. Sorry about the phone in the background. It's gone mad. I'm here on my own. There's nobody else here, so nobody answered the phone. So check you are legal. Your driving license in order, and make sure the photograph is in date. It's going to be really, really embarrassing if you get stopped by the police. Can I have your license, please? And your photograph's at the date. So check that's okay. It is a legal requirement to have the correct address with the DVSA, and also under the what is it called? The code of conduct, to have the correct address with the DVSA registrar as well. ADI badge. The people who are waiting for their ADI badges to come back, if you've received the email from the DVSA for you to continue training, that's okay until your badge comes back in this coronavirus environment. That's not normally what happens, but they have been issuing out credence emails to show people, to show whoever has reasonable grounds to ask for it, that you are a qualified ADI. You haven't got the badge because it's up for renewal, and because of the lockdown situation, the DVSA has taken, in this instance, a disproportionate amount of time to get it changed. And make sure your public liability and professional indemnity insurances are all up together as well. So in other words, if you're a DIA member, make sure your membership is up together and you've got your certificates with your address on it, etc. So if anyone has cause to inspect it, you've got it. So prior to meeting up with anybody, you want to have as little contact as possible. So the risk here is to make sure you reduce the risk by making phone calls to your students at least 24 hours before you're going to see them. Okay, because you haven't seen these people now for 3 months, you ought to check their driving licenses. You'll certainly have to check their eyesight again when they come out first time round. But you'll certainly have to check their driving licenses again I had an ADR this morning who's on the phone to me this morning and said, I've got a guy, I phoned him up and he's now managed to get 8 points on his license in the last 3 months. What do I do? So, you know, this is happening. And this guy's, that's a provisional license, by the way. So you do need to get these licenses checked. That's the link there to do it with. What will happen? Well, you don't have to do it. They have to do it for you. And they can email you the code that is generated by that link. And then what you can also do then is they need to send you the last 8 characters of the national, so of the driver number and the national insurance number as well. And then 24 hours before you're going to see him, check that license code to see if the license is all in order. It's no point going there and there's no point trying to get them in the car and then doing a phone call because you can't share phones. It's just nasty. You know, you can't do any of that now. So it has to be done by code. But prepare yourself, get the phone call going, ask questions about how they are, etc. The initial call, it's really about their health. It's have they got symptoms or had symptoms of COVID-19? Have they been tested for it? How long ago was that? Are they shielding people and family members and what categories they're in? Because you need to know what risk you could be to them to take back into their household because you've got lots of people in your vehicle doing training. And I wouldn't say that they are putting smoke in the environment, as it were. They are they're integrating into your environment and leaving bits behind, despite the fact you're doing the cleaning and the sanitizing. There still could be stuff there which you could take into your home, etc. So it's a situation where you're looking at the risk there as well. The one of the worst things you will definitely come across, and I had a seminar with Driving for Better Business 2 weeks ago, and Fleet Serve, and the people we had around the table, the biggest thing that the employers were finding was anxiety with their drivers that they had. So on the lockdown, they'd been involved with voluntary work. They'd come out of furlough. They'd seen some things they didn't like the look of, and a lot of them were quite moved by it. So you may find that a lot of these people, being youngsters who are training, are more impressionable as well. You could become an agony aunt if you're not careful, and you don't want to be like that in the car. I mentioned this in the webinar 2 weeks ago about being empathetic and sympathetic. You can't be sympathetic and start hugging in that, because that just can't happen. You know, they burst into tears because they've lost one of their members of the family, and the funeral, only so many members of the family could go, so they couldn't say goodbye, and all the grieving processes, etc. You've got to ensure that when they come back to you, that they're coming back to the learning environment fit and ready to take on information, because if they don't, that is a higher risk to you. That puts you in a higher risk category because they are not receptive. So don't be afraid to say to them, look, let's hold off even longer. I know you're jumping at the bit to get back in the car, but you're going to have to hold off, okay? And also, in the initial call, you're going to have to mention to them about the sanitation situation, that you know, if they want to wear gloves, that's okay. They must wash their hands just before they come out of the house. You're not going to let them in the vehicle straight away. You're going to have to talk about things outside the vehicle. Then they can get in and get themselves sorted in the vehicle, but you'll be driving with the windows open. It is best not to use recycled air. And there's the jury's out a bit about air conditioning as well at the moment, about using air conditioning. There's a bit of an argument about whether it should be used or not. I personally feel it shouldn't be, but it's down to you. So maintain the safe working environment, the deep clean at the outset, as we said, and weekly thereafter. Your daily checks must be done. Driving license and eyesight check of your student, because you haven't seen them for 3 months and anything could have happened to that license there. And also, if they have been ill, their eyesight might have some sort of problem with it as well. Establishing the client's well-being. You've got 2 contact opportunities, 24 hours at least before you see them, and also just before you roll up to their house. When you've dropped off your last client, the client previous, give them a ring and just make sure that, although they might have sounded all right on the phone yesterday, just listen for signs on the phone, and be careful, you know, to try and use every opportunity you can to make sure that you're reducing the risk of exposure to COVID-19, especially. So you can contact them, phone them again, and make sure everything's still all right. Tell them what time you're going to be there, etc., and what to bring with them. And when you get to the house, because you've just driven to their place or wherever you're picking them up, you're going to have to do another intermittent wipe down outside their place, and they can watch you do that if they want to, or they can help you do it if need be on their side of the vehicle. You can show them what needs to be wiped. So if they're doing private practice with mum and dad, they do the same thing, and talk about what PPE you're likely to be wearing. So if you're going to be wearing a mask or face covering, should I say, then you can warn them of that. If they wish to wear one, just guide them that they must be wary that if they wear glasses, it is a possibility that the mask could steam glasses up, and which could cause a problem with the driving. If that happens, then they'd have to take the mask off in order to get full visibility, obviously. Okay, so there's those things to go through with them. Again, all this is putting them into a frame of mind that things have changed. They have now got a new environment. It will take them a little time to settle down into it. But again, this is going to enhance the risk to you to start with, because things are going to be a bit strange to them. Where they used to be able to get in the car, get their belt on, etc., and carry on, that's not going to be the case now. Things have changed, so it's going to be a little bit of norming and storming going on, where they try to sort themselves out, trying to get back into some sort of semblance of routine. So the deep clean, the COVID-19, and it's a non-healthcare settings. That's what the gov.uk set out. So it's bleach-free disinfectant. So make sure you read the label, drying cloths, etc. And on the wipe downs, if you're going to wear face coverings and masks, etc., disposable gloves, certainly for your wipe downs as well, with all the wipes. This is the sort of kit that you're going to need to have for you. With you for like a little works kit now is what it can have to be, but branded clothing and all clothing needs to be washed daily. So how much danger and threat is there surrounding your environment? That's what you've got to ask the question. Now, bear in mind that lockdown, the traffic volumes died pretty much. There's still been a 30% increase in speeding infringements. A lot of that's been cameras, of course. But considering the low volume of traffic, the people that have been caught speeding have taken it on themselves to think, because nobody else is around, that they can go faster. What they're not thinking of is that the bends haven't got any straighter in the road, and the roads haven't got any wider. So really and truly, all they're thinking of is what can they see that they can hit. So in other words, the behaviour and attitude to road safety soon gets forgotten very quickly indeed. But you're now going to put your students back into that environment where the road behaviour has changed quite dramatically. Lorry drivers during lockdown pretty much owned the road on the main roads, on the trunk roads, because they're still moving stuff from the ports. And now all the cars and motorbikes are on their turf, and that's how the lorry drivers see it. That's what I've been reading in some of the forums. A lot of people in the outer urban areas have been able to walk on country roads and not really had too much care in the world. A lot more cycling being going on. And in the urban and out of urban areas where people have been told that public transport is not a good idea, they've moved on to bikes and motorbikes in order to get around. So there's a lot more of that. So the motorcycle instructors that are out there, I mean, just with a lot more bikes on the road, there is more risk to you guys now with the, unless RADI start telling the car drivers, their students to increase their observations, you guys, are going to have to be a little bit careful in the time while everything's trying to settle down. In the classroom environment, we've still got the health and safety thing, and the social distancing regulations all still take place. Cleanliness of all surfaces, that includes the underside of desks as well, where anybody wearing shorts might come into contact with skin. It would be best for a dress code to be there if you're doing classroom environment, if everyone to cover up with legs and cover up their arms as well. Hand washing regime has to exist for any classroom environment now. That's what the regulations are. And hand sanitisation, but certainly the DVSA on the tests now are insisting that on the key worker tests, that hands are washed immediately upon entering the test centres. And that's likely to continue afterwards as well when the general public go back to doing tests too. So hand washing regime is going to have to be quite strict in classroom environment, and also hand sanitation should also be available as well. PPE, face coverings, etc. If the trainer decides to wear a face covering, then just be wary of the clarity of diction, etc. When you are trying to put across what you're trying to say, you may have to talk a bit slower and a bit more succinct because you could sound a little bit muffled. Pens cannot be shared. That's the same at the test centre now as well. The test centres, the examiners will check licenses by getting the students to sign a separate piece of paper, but they won't share the pens. So you've got to take their own pens to test centres as well. So pens for classrooms, exactly the same. Pens cannot be shared. If you're one of these students, one of these trainers that tends to give pens out, you may have to cease doing that practice until all the people coming to the session that they have to bring their own pens. And the room must be ventilated. And again, the air condition argument goes on, but it's generally accepted that it should be windows open to be ventilated and the aircon should possibly not be on. So organisational management approaches, we're going to just touch on this because we got fleet trainers who are in the situation of advising management approaches to management. And with recruitment levels that have been very high due to the lockdown and people wanting stuff delivered home because they can't go out anywhere, we've now had a two-tier cohort driver training level. The old hands that were with a company before lockdown had gone through all their induction processes and were familiar with their vehicles. Okay, well, they're going to take a few minutes to get used to their vehicles. But during the lockdown, where there's been a big influx of new staff, the training has been truncated, where it's probably gone from 4 days, it's probably gone into 1 day. And instead of there being an in-vehicle familiarization course, in some instances, the drivers have just literally watched a video. So that means you've got different levels of ability and competence driving some larger vehicles around now, where they've been upskilled from smaller vans to larger vans, where category C1 guy or category C guys have had organisations driving 7.5 ton vehicles. They may have had to hire in vehicles, and although they have the license for C1 and done tests on C1, haven't driven for quite some time, and their competence levels are a little bit shady at the moment as well. Some of the CPC, that's the Certificate for Professional Competence, which exists on the LGV sector and the PCV or PSV sector. There's been a change in legislation yesterday for the fleet trainers need to know this, that where the CPC was allowed to be a holiday on expiry until the 31st of September, that's been brought forward to the 31st of August as from yesterday. So that means that the organisations that need to have their drivers with 35 hours of CPC have just lost 1 month to do it. So from the 1st of September, any driver driving a CPC or driving anything to do with tachograph and driver's hours regulations would need CPC. If they're stopped by the police, will be fined and prosecuted for driving basically with no insurance, driving illegally and not in accordance with a license. Those three things there, all of them produce heavy penalties, and also to the operating license as well. So they have to have their CPC up together with their 35 hours now by the 31st of August this year, and not the 31st of September, or 30th of September rather. Okay, so we've got a situation where drivers have been upgraded to vehicles without inductions, and also some guys that have been warehousemen have now been made drivers with no induction and familiarization training. So again, our learners in cars or on the bikes have all got to deal with that sort of thing as well. It's quite rife at the moment. And again, this came out the Driving for Better Business seminar I did 2 weeks ago, that this is what's been happening. So we are hoping that the organisations that have truncated the training will go back and retrain these drivers, but training budgets then tend to be the first ones to get cut. And with the situation we're in at the moment, I don't hold much hope of these guys ever having that addressed. So let's go into a risk factor now again. Sorry, I just jumped. Let's try again. Risk factor of the traffic light system. So looking at competencies again, using the traffic lights of red for serious danger and amber for intermediate danger, and low risk being green. Okay, so that's they're the things that we're using. And what we've done is we have put together a risk assessment matrix for situation. I know it's a bit small, that I can't, you can't see that very well, I'm afraid. What we have is, this is 8 pages of matrix. I've only done a screenshot for one at the moment. So I'll try and read. I'm just trying to find out my other screen here so I can, just bear with me 1 second because it's slightly big and I can read it out to you then. There we go. Let's pick that up and we can pick it up from there. So here we are. Right, okay. So what we've got is, if we look at the columns we've got there, we've got trainer and client under training scenario. So really that is our environment. Our proposed action is to train these people. Our environment is where they're coming from, how they're going to affect the environment. So I don't know if you can read it very well there. It's not very big, I must be honest, but let's just see what page I'm on there. Number 3 I want.
Howard, this matrix will be available as a download, won't it?
Is that okay? Good.
For people.
Okay, so I'll read the first column to you where it says trainer at the top column there. It says the trainer is living, this is sort of the scenarios we're looking at. The trainer is living with family members who are in the higher risk category, is unwell or has come into contact with someone who is unwell or returned from abroad without being isolated or quarantined. Okay, that's the trainer. The trainer's in that situation. So we've then got a client that contacts them and says your client is a newly qualified carer, now required to learn to drive for a position in community social care in a non-COVID-19 environment. So they are a key worker, okay? So the risk rating is the trainer and their household is of considerable risk to the client. So the trainer can burst the bubble, okay? So that's why it's risk category 1. That's why that would be a high risk situation, okay? We wouldn't be in, that's a situation you want to consider. So the required actions by the client or the pupil would be to use a trainer on the voluntary register of driver trainers for key workers, okay? And the reason we say do that is because the people on that register have gone through additional guidance and training on how to deal with people who are in the COVID environment, in the COVID theatre, okay? That's why that that register was put together with us, NASP and the DFT, and the DFT stipulated that there was some hoops to jump through before certificates were issued for these people, and one of them was going through quite a strict regime of understanding sanitation, and also I think understanding how people in the front line of COVID are supposed to behave outside of work. I mean, I think one of them was quite strict and said that they were not allowed to socialise with their friends in the whole time of lockdown, in case they were contaminated and couldn't carry out their critical job or their key job. So they'd be asked to use a trainer on the register for driver trainer. That's what you would advise them to do if you were that trainer who's in that situation. And the risk to the trainer, the client poses little risk to the ADI. The ADI poses more risk to the client. Okay, so the response by the trainer will do not train the client because the trainer themselves is the problem. So additional guidance there. The client should be passed to the voluntary register of driver trainers for key workers which contains ADIs who have successfully completed the safe practices module and are in a low risk category of health and well-being. So the key worker trainers, the volunteer registered trainers are normally all of them are in the low risk category. They're not shielding people, etc. That's why they're on that category, and they've signed up and got the identity for their vehicles, etc. And whenever they get a key worker, they have to register the key worker to the system as well. So if they're stopped, the police can actually validate that the trainer is training a key worker. That's how that works. DFT insisted on that when we put it together. Okay, so if we go to the next one, if you can see my cursor, this one is another one. Now, the trainer lives alone and is well and is not in an enhanced medical risk sector. So really, they're equivalent to Snow White. You know, there's nothing wrong with them at all. Okay, so you're all Snow White at the moment. Okay, right. So going to the client is in frontline medical emergency staff who are on C19 wards or exposed to a C19 environment. It doesn't mean say they're ill, they're exposed to it. So they're a critical worker. Now, this puts them in a risk 2 category. It puts them in medium risk. The trainer's household is in good condition, so the trainer is able to train them, but the risk from the client can jeopardize that, okay? So there's nothing wrong with the trainer, and there's nothing wrong with the client. It's just where they work, which puts them under medium risk, okay? So what the trainer would be saying to the client in this instance is there must be a complete change of clothing and awareness of the importance of personal hygiene. Now, in the hospital environment, there's a very high-powered cleaning agent called Hibby Scrub. And anybody has an operation, when they go for a shower, is given Hibby Scrub to keep their wounds clean, okay? And this is readily available in the hospital environments, okay? So that's what you would ask them to scrub them to get themselves cleaned in before they come to the vehicle, okay? So before they come to the appointment. The client will need to ensure that they have washed their hands also just prior to entering your vehicle and should wear protective gloves. A face covering could be considered. Long trousers and long sleeves should be worn and no open footwear. Now, we've had a bit of a question raised about this before a few weeks ago. And I go back to the evidence from the chief medical officer who has been to the transport industry, and where lorries are double manned, that is the regulations they've been given. So where people can't meet social distancing regulations, 2 people in the same vehicle that can't meet the regulations, that arms and legs should be covered and there shouldn't be any open-toed footwear. Now that's, so we're in the same boat. You know, we're actually closer than a lorry driver to his driver's mate. I mean, they're nearly 2 meters wide. We aren't. So if it's for them, we have to do the same as well. And that's what's really been agreed with NASP. Okay. So risk to trainer, the client's exposure to the C19 is the biggest risk, although the client as well. There's biggest risk to trainer. The trainer poses minimal risk to the client. So the response to the trainer is here, ensure the client has a justifiable reason for training. If a DVSA key worker test has been issued, then a training regime must be planned. The AGI vehicle should not be used by any member of the public, sorry, any member of the family. So ideally, once that decrease and you're using your vehicle for training, try to keep your members of the family out of it if you can. I mean, it's not practical all the time, but try and keep them out, because every time they get in that vehicle, it's got to be done again. You've got to keep that starting block of cleanliness in your vehicle now to protect your own household, okay? So again, the third column, so the last column there talks about the contacting clients before you meet them, okay? And again, you'd need to tell them that you have to have a driver license code from them, so you can check the license beforehand, tell them you'll check their eyesight, to wash their hands before they come to the vehicle, that you won't be able to shake their hand, that you'll have the vehicle sanitized before you get to them, that the windows will be open, etc. And therefore they need to bring suitable dress to keep themselves comfortable whilst driving, because you get a day like today where the temperature's dropped and you've got the windows open, they might need to wear a fleece or wear a cardigan or whatever. So you need to come with the appropriate clothing, and that's what need to be guiding them. So that's the sort of risk analysis we've got for the matrix, which will be available for download. It is in the Return to Work toolkit we were talking about earlier on as well. That's available to the members, that is. So let's just go through the matrix before we finish. We're nearly finished now. So what we call the matrix mechanics, we're talking about a proposed action versus the environment is your outcome, okay? So with us, the proposed action is training. The environment is a situation of the client or trainer, which equals the safety of the outcome. So if we're training and it's versus a high-risk client or high-risk trainer, then no training is going to take place, okay? If training is versus a client, a critical worker, to a high-risk trainer, no training is going to take place, okay? So the critical worker might be that's working in a critical environment. So there's an exposure risk to the high-risk trainer. So that critical worker will be sent to the voluntary register. So training versus a key worker to a low-risk trainer, no reason why training can't take place. And so a key worker would be somebody like a Tesco's driver delivering to home deliveries or a home delivery driver. They do have a minimal risk of exposure on the front doors, but the regimes that have been given to them now is to phone clients before they turn up. So if there's any COVID risk, the goods are left at the gate and they are told to collect the goods from the gate once the van's driven off. That's what happens there. No food is passed through the house threshold anymore. It's all delivered to the front door now. And normally it's a safe distance. Everything's all paid by online, so there's nothing to sign for anymore either. When you've got a training training versus a critical worker to a low risk trainer, again, there's no reason why the training can't take place. So what you're doing is the risk analysis is bursting the bubbles. Who's going to burst whose bubble? Who's at the risk area? And what's the outcome going to come? That's what you're measuring, is that outcome. How high a risk is the outcome going to be? So so here we are back on our risk matrix, and effectively on that matrix, that's exactly what we've done. There's 8 pages of that matrix, which covers pretty nearly all of the connotations you can get between trainer and client, okay? And that will be available to you, as we said. Okay, so questions. We've got time, we've gone over time, it's 12:15. I'm very wary that I've gone over time, sorry about that, but this is really quite a serious situation and a lot of information that you need to know for this risk assessment stuff. You've got to be aware of protecting yourselves because you've been in your own safety bubble mostly of being at home. Yes, we're allowed to go and visit people now and things are starting to be relaxed, but the COVID virus can spike, and I heard yesterday on the media that our reduction in new cases is not going down as quick as most places in Europe. So we're still not quite getting there. And with the African situation where the Barclays Deloitte Welt, who's the big international money lending bank, I believe have now refused to fund African nations to help them with their health systems, because they've had to write off trillions of dollars of debt in the past twice, and they are the main funding source for Africa. So it's quite possible that we could get some spikes coming out of Africa, of the African nations, and that is what Europe is now contemplating and who are now reassessing at the moment about being prepared for a spike epidemic. Not quite as bad as the first one, probably be local, it'd be regional, but it is possible it can happen. So we've got to be very wary. We must do these risk assessments. So what questions have we got then, Tom, I can answer?
Yeah, so for some of the questions, what I've done is I've typed answers back to you guys directly. If you look at the question box at the top, it's an answered section. So have a look on there and see if I have come back to you. But yeah, in terms of questions, there's a few sort of general ones. Someone's asked if the DVSA are going to release a official document, the sort of details of procedure.
Well, they have for key workers already, and it's on gov.org. Gov.org.
Okay.
Oh, what is it? Gov.uk. You know what I mean. Sorry, I can't remember. What is it? Gov.org.uk, isn't it? That's the one. Sorry. Yeah, it's on there. It's on that part of the website. You can find it in there, and it does go through what the examiners are doing for the key work. I think it's under booking a key worker test. I think if you click on that, it comes up as what to expect at the test, as well as the booking situation. It comes up there. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, the people just are asking about whether they get the risk assessment matrix. So as Howard said, that'll be available as a download as part of the toolkit we're creating, and we'll be releasing more information on that at the beginning of next week in regards to how and where you can access it. Just looking through, there's a few more questions about the key worker register, so people's certificates. Down expiring on the 1st of July. So
yeah, it's the ones that came on very early are having their certificate extended today. I know Vicky sent a few out this morning. You may have to request it because Vicky is very, very busy. She's working her socks off, bless her. She really is. I mean, Tom will testify to that. She is very, very busy at the moment. with all sorts of membership things that are going on. And so it might, if you know you're coming close to expiry on your certificate, I'd kindly ask you just to give her a very polite nudge, because that will help the situation. She's got a lot going on at the moment, and that's really all I can say. To be honest, at the moment, I can't help her with her duties. I've got so many of technical stuff to do for myself, but she is trying to work through everything. But if you want to give her, if you're sort of expiring really quite soon, don't be afraid to give her a very polite nudge, and email it to help@driving.org. That goes through to membership. So can I, while I'm here on this screen you can see in front of you, you can keep the dates on the website as driving.org. That's the DIA's website. If the online training centre there is www.diaacademy.co.uk. To access previous webinars, on the end of what you see there, put /webinars/ and that will take you through to all of the webinars that have been recorded in the past. Okay, that's a good resource there for you. It's free to everybody to get to the webinars. Okay, now if you want the ADIs to help you for training matters, etc., then it's support@driving.org. The help email is for membership. Okay, so support is the ADIs, help is membership. So if you could use those emails when you contact us, and please leave an email address to us if you will. It's easier for us to respond to you in the first instance by email. Even if it's a question you've got that's too complicated, we can email and say, look, can you please call us, or we'll call you because it's too complicated to email you the answer. If you can do that, please, it does help us with our inboxes, because I kid you not, we are getting hundreds and hundreds of emails a week on support. We really are, because there's a lot of worried people, and there's only 3 of us to deal with it. And so it's getting very difficult for us to do that and do these webinars for you as well. So please help us to help you by leaving email addresses when you contact us through the support, please.
Yeah, well, Graham's just said that apparently Peter Laub is over in Guildford.
Oh, good. I haven't seen Peter for a while, but if you see him, could you please give him my regards?
Excellent. Yeah. So yeah, as said, we've got a list of all the questions that you've raised into the webinar. If we have missed any, obviously I will pass them on to Carly to add into the updates that she does. So yeah, if we have missed it, apologies. We're not ignoring you. We do look at them, and yeah, we're doing our best to get through them all. Yeah, in terms of question, Howard, I think that's pretty much it for today.
Well, everybody, thank you for your time and trouble to listen to me ramble on. On behalf of you, I thank Tom for his efforts. Okay, so because he works behind the scenes very hard indeed to do things that we don't see him do, and this all suddenly appears hey presto. So thank you, Tom, for what you're doing. Thank you, everybody, for being so patient with us responding to emails. We're not at the end of the crisis yet. There still might be a few delays in getting things back to you, but we will update you as best we can. For those who are non-members, you can still get updates of stuff on the website, on the driving.org website. We are starting to close down stuff we've been giving free, because obviously the members have to come first now. We have been quite benevolent, so we've got to start reeling ourselves in now because the workload as well. So if you would like to consider membership to the DIA, if you want to contact help@driving.org, or even go onto the website will tell you what benefits there are, and you can sort that out yourselves with your public liability and professional indemnity. It gets thrown in as well, which is very useful for you. That leaves me to say thank you very much and good day to you all. Have a lovely weekend. We've got a little bit of inclement weather coming our way, I think, but try and enjoy yourselves, and above all, keep safe, and regards to all your families, and hope they're all safe and well too. So on behalf of myself and Tom, thank you very much indeed, and goodbye.